All right, kings, gentlemen, everyone else, welcome to yet another exciting episode of Guy in a Fedora walking through the streets at twilight. So, a lot of people have asked me, what do I predict is going to be the outcome of the war in Ukraine? Who's going to win and who's going to lose? Well, I would love to answer that question, but before we answer that question, we have to answer the question of why is the war in Ukraine being fought? And that is a little more complex to answer than a lot of people think. Because really, think to yourself, why do you think that war is happening? Why do you think that war is being fought? Is it over the territories in eastern Ukraine? Is it over NATO expansion? Is it because Biden needed to distract people from Hunter Biden's laptop? You know, that pictures of Hunter Biden's penis are the linchpin on which global politics function. If you can't answer that question, you don't really know what the war is about. And if you don't know what the war is about, well, don't really know whether someone is winning or losing it, whether someone is accomplishing their war aims or not. So, let's answer that question now that we framed it so. Okay, so let's see. Why is the war being fought? Let's ask the guy who started the war. Let's ask Vladimir Putin. And the answer can be found in that 2021 essay of his, where he basically lays it out that the reason Russia invaded Ukraine, at first through proxies in 2014 and then outright and fully in 2022, is because the Russian state political formula cannot abide the existence of a separate Ukrainian nation. What do I mean by that? Well, the political formula of a nation is the set of presuppositions about the world which form the shared civic religion, or we could say shared delusion, of not only a country's ruling class, but really the country's population, where the state derives its legitimacy. Because everyone, you wake up in the morning, you obey a bunch of laws which may appear arbitrary, you obey a bunch of people who are above you in the social hierarchy, and how they got there, it appears a little arbitrary. So, you have to ask yourself a question, why do I do these things? When, if enough people got together and stopped obeying the government, we could actually change things as they happen. Legitimacy is the thing that makes you obey the law, even when there's no cops present. So, that's what the political formula provides. The political formula of the Russian Federation and of the Soviet Union before it, and of Tsarist Russia before it, was that Russia is the expression of Eastern Slavic statehood, the only legitimate expression of Eastern Slavic statehood, specifically because it has not been polluted with Western heresies. This is the idea of the katechon, and it really relates to this notion that all Western forms of Christianity are heretical, and only Russian Orthodoxy is real Christianity. Not even, Byzantine Orthodoxy, like the kind we practice here in Macedonia or over in Greece and everything. No, specifically Russian Orthodoxy is the only valid religion on the planet. The only valid form of Christianity, really. As for religion, they also accept various forms of Islam, shamanism, communism, right? But as far as Christianity goes, and that's something to think about, that basically the Russian political formula hinges on being brothers with a Shia Muslim, but a mortal enemy of a Catholic or a Protestant. And this is reflected in Russian state policy. They do be persecuting Protestant Christians, something fierce. Well, anyways, the existence of a Ukrainian state as separate from the Russian state is, flies in the face of such a political formula, especially if this Ukrainian state is even just a little bit better than Russia, if it's just a little bit more functional, if it's just a little bit less corrupt, if the people are just a little bit wealthier. And the difference in average wealth between Russia and Ukraine, it's not a little bit. Ukraine is one of Europe's poorest countries. It's not the poorest, but it's one of the poorest. But it's still wealthier than Russia on average. Now, the thing about Russia is You have Moscow and St. Petersburg, which are extremely wealthy, and everywhere else in extreme poverty. But Ukraine is not like that. Ukraine, I mean, obviously people from Kyiv are wealthier than people from the countryside, but the difference is not that great. The difference is not that great. And Ukrainian peasant from the countryside, well, these people have indoor plumbing, which is not a lot of, not, a lot of Russians can't say that. Now, there's reasons for that which aren't related so much to wealth and state capacity, but we'll not get into them right now. And just the existence of this Ukrainian state as a separate thing from the Russian state, whether as an independent state or something outside of Russian hegemony, is offensive. It's actually dangerous to the Russian political formula, but it could be because it presents an alternative form of Eastern Slavic statehood, a sort of alternative Rus, if you will, because Russia cannot pretend to be the true heir of the Kievan Rus, which was a grand and powerful medieval European state, if actual Kiev is a different state and one that is, by any metric, better than the Russian state. That is the reason. That is the reason, the core reason for initiating the war is to make impossible Ukrainian separateness from Russia, because Ukrainian separateness from Russia is what undermines the very idea of the political legitimacy of the Kremlin, regardless of whether it's crony capitalist, communist, Tsarist, or whatever. It is either, the center of all Rus, or it is no center at all. And if there's an alternative Rus in Kyiv, or in Minsk, or in Novgorod, or in Chernihiv, or anywhere in the old Rus lands, well, that's really the end of the legitimacy. So, having framed the question as thus, we can now answer it. Who is winning the war? I can tell you from the get-go, Russia has already lost this war, because the events of the past 10 years since 2014, but especially the last 3 years since 2022, have absolutely and permanently severed Ukrainians from Russia. There may have been pro-Russian Ukrainians in Ukraine before 2014. There may have been even some pro-Russian Ukrainians before 2022. There are no pro-Russian Ukrainians today. None that have remained within the country, or alive for that matter. Ukrainian national identity has been completely and fully formed in a direction which is anti-Russian to the extreme, which was actually one of Putin's greatest fears, that a heavily armed, militarized anti-Russia will spawn right on Russia's doorstep. Well, congratulations, Vlad, you did it. You did it, Vlad. You regathered the lands of the Rus. In that respect, Russia has already lost this war, and its political aims will never be completed. This is just impossible. What's left to see is how badly they're going to lose it, and will they be able to salvage something out of it? And here we come to the question of, are they going to keep the occupied territories or not? And of course the question is, if Russia has already lost the war, will Ukraine also lose the war? Because this could very easily turn into one of these wars where there is no winner, Ukraine wins the war, but the price is too great. So that's really my answer to what's the outcome of the war. Now, as for the nuances of this outcome, which I've mentioned, those will not be answered by a wandering geopolitical commentator with a fedora. Those will be answered on the battlefield. These are the kinds of Hegelian questions which require Hegelian answers. But in the respect of, does Russia still have the possibility of achieving its actual war aims? No. And it has lost this possibility for at least the next 500 years. And with that, it's getting dark. I should probably get home. Bye-bye, people, and take care.